Clock fixed. It's still an hour off. All right, let me know when we're on. We on? Well, there you go. Letting me know we're on. All right, shalom, everyone. Shalom. I think. There we go. My papers are on the other surface over there. Okay. Well, welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday night Torah Study. And this is our final Torah Study forever. No, I'm kidding. It is our final one of this Torah cycle. We're going to complete the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy tonight. And so we're very excited to be completing the cycle. Of course, it's with mixed emotions when you complete it that you're thinking, wow, we finished now, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to start again. We'll do that on the 15th at the feast site. All right, so this is what we're going to do. I've got two Torah portions we're going to get done tonight, Hatzinu and Vezot HaBracha, and we're going to go through those. We're going to get a little bit of announcements in, and we're going to have a discussion about the Torah portion. So we're going to get a whole bunch of things going on here. If you've got a phone, you may want to go ahead and turn that to silent. Make sure I've done that. There we go. All right, so for those of you that may be new, we've got Manny on the live stream desk there. He'll be kind of monitoring the goings on there, and I believe Kurt Meyer will probably be on there as well. So please respect their authority and leadership in the chat room as they try to keep things at, in a peaceful manner and in order. We do want to ask that all of you that are online, respect the fact that this is a congregational study, but it's open to all. But in that it's open to all, it's not open to all, so all can come and bring their own agendas and their own, ministries here. It's not an open forum from that point of view, but it is an opportunity for those that don't have something locally to participate in a Torah study. Okay. So that being said, let me go ahead and start off with prayer time and see if there's any prayer needs we need to address, and then we'll go into the announcements and we'll take it from there. So let's get, Michael, come up and grab the mic so you can take it around. Steve's not going to be here tonight. Let's keep Mr. Steve Waffle in prayer as he's traveling to come back from his trip to California. Also, keep in prayer that it did not go well. So just keep that in prayer. At least it did not go the way. Well, I shouldn't say that. It went exactly the way it was supposed to. Not necessarily the way he desired or anybody else desired. And that's kind of a hard thing for us, isn't it? That things happen the way they're supposed to, and it's not often the way we would like it to be. But there's reasons for everything, and we don't always understand them. So we pray that Steve will handle that as well as can be handled. Okay. Sorry, a little technical difficulty with the second mic. The button's broken to turn it on. You just got to really get your fingernail in that little spot. All right, so what we're going to do first is take up any prayer needs. If anybody has a need or a praise that they need to share, raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll go right to the live stream desk and get this going.
It's way early over here.
What was that?
It's way too early over here.
Way too early over there? Okay, I'll do announcements first, and then we'll do prayer time. How's that?
That'll work.
How many people you got on there? $102. Okay, so that's a good start. All right, so I'll make announcements now. We'll make announcements again. Okay, so first announcement is that, let's see. Shana Tova. Shana Tova. Say Shana Tova. All right. Okay, it means Happy New Year. And by the way, in prayer time, let's pray for all those that I properly triggered by calling yesterday Rosh Hashanah. Okay, I did get a letter in the mail already from one person, so everybody was properly triggered, so we could check that checkbox off. Okay. Of course, I also called it every other appropriate name that it would be called, Yom Truah, Zikron Truah. Okay, so we did call it all of the appropriate names. But just so you know, in case anybody's worried, we did properly trigger a few people. Okay. Now, this is the challenge. I'm going to kind of throw this out there. This is the challenge with all of us studying Scripture when we're new. You're not used to thinking on levels, in layers, cyclically. In other words, cycles. You're used to thinking linearly. And so it's very easy for someone to say things like, well, you know, it doesn't say Rosh Hashanah anywhere in your Bible. I said, okay. But that's also where I've gotten people all mad when I told them it doesn't say Ruach HaKodesh anywhere in your Tanakh, in the Hebrew. That phrase exists nowhere. Of course, then I've had people say, and they go to the Psalms where it says, and the Spirit of God, that's in Hebrew, Ruach Elohim. So I didn't say the Spirit of God doesn't exist, or the Holy Spirit doesn't exist in the Old Testament. I've made argument after argument and case after case. Absolutely it does. But I'm just saying is when people want to say, well, the phrase Rosh Hashanah, but you know what, that phrase is there, but it's not there in relation to Tishrei 1. I get that, okay? But of course, and I've explained this ad nauseum, you have Leviticus chapter 25. Do you know, according to the Jewish sages, there are 4 calendars at least, okay? One for agriculture, one for trees, one for cattle, because you've got, and of course the holy days. And the reason that this has been known as the civil New Year, they say, well, it's the civil New Year, which means the government of Israel came up with it. No. The civil New Year because all civil things like releasing debt, setting free prisoners, all happen after atonement, and Tishrei 1 is the first day of the month that they have that. So when you're counting years, and I've said this 1,000 times, there's a calendar for counting years. There's a calendar for counting months and days, because that's what we need to know when we keep feasts. What month is it? What day is it? What moon is it? We don't need to know what moon it is to figure out whether or not you're in year 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 of the Shemitah cycle, or 37, 38, 39 of the Jubilee cycle. Okay, so again, just because something is not openly and overtly in your scriptures, and by the way, a ton of what you need to know is not openly and overtly in your scriptures. Now, if you can have a scholar lead you through the journey, you can see that it really isn't as hidden as you might have thought. But you have to be open to the journey to see what he's trying to tell us, not just what he's telling us. Oh, no, now, Rabbi, you're adding and taking away and doing all these things. No, I'm not. I'm revealing what was always there, but you didn't know it was there. Make sense? Okay, so again, I'm not upset by this. I expected it. Actually, I expected a lot more than we got in terms of response to all that. But sometimes I'll push that button on purpose, and so when we go to the idea of calling it Rosh Hashanah, we get all kinds of responses. Okay? Anyway, so I wanted to just throw that out there so we could all feel good that we at least triggered at least 1 or 2 people for that. Now, mission accomplished. Okay, now, announcements. So we are really now on a fast track right to Sukkot. Okay, we're in the days of awe between trumpets and atonement as we count down to Yom HaKippurim. Because a lot of people will call it, well, we call it Day of Atonement. Well, actually, no, it's Day of Atonements. So if you're out there telling me I'm wrong about Rosh Hashanah and you call it Day of Atonement, you're wrong too. It's Yom HaKippurim. Okay, Ha means the, and Kippurim, so atonements. Kippurim is plural, not Kippur. Okay, but we call it Yom Kippur. That's been the way the tradition has been over the centuries. But it's Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement, so the Day of Atonement. So that's coming up. And the reason I think it's plural is because you have 2 different type of atonements going on. You have one with the high priest has to go first, and then the nation. So it's not just a Day of Atonement as an individual, but this was a national day for the nation to atone. Okay, so that's why it's the plural, because it's involving everybody in the nation, and that's coming up here on Wednesday the 9th. So we're going to, got just a quick countdown of 9 more days, and we'll be there. And that service will be scheduled as I think I mentioned before, we'll do it at 5 o'clock. The service doesn't probably go much more than an hour or so, so we'll be done easily before sundown. We'll hang out here at least until sundown, at least I should expect it. You will stay here at least close till sundown, and then go off to wherever you're going to go to break your fast. Okay. I was going to say something else, but just realize also that you're going to go out there and find lots of arguments against the idea of complete fasting for atonement, the arguments over the meaning of the phrase, afflict yourself, okay? And, as for me in my house, we're going to completely fast. That's the way we're going to understand it. We're going to understand it the way the Yehudim, the Jews, have understood it for thousands of years. And you can choose to do whatever you choose to do, all right? But I've seen videos out there. Some of the bigger ministries have put videos out there trying to argue because, after all, they're not respecting what needs to be respected. I don't know how else to put it, okay? And there are things that need to be respected. I'm not saying we got to respect everything that comes out of the Jewish community. But there are things that when we don't know, that's probably a good time to see what they were doing. That doesn't mean it's always going to be right, but it's probably a better chance they're going to be right than whatever our guess is going to be, if it's something we don't know. And there is lots of precedents for that in the scriptures. In Genesis, we're told that the teacher shall come, there'll always be a teacher coming from between the feet of Judah. Okay, so there'll always be a teacher. There's an authority there. The scepter resides with Judah. Whatever that means, you'll see. Again, these are all, it's so simple and obvious. No, you need help figuring that stuff out. It doesn't mean you have to get that help from me. It just means that you're not going to just look at it and go, well, that's obvious. Everybody who looks at it will think exactly the same thing. By the way, if you think everything is so obvious, why do we all argue at all about Scripture? If it is that straightforward and simple, there should never be a scriptural argument. Agreed? You guys came for the sermon tonight, right? I mean, that's just one of those things like, well, if the scripture is so simple and straightforward, why is there a debate? Somebody picked on me recently and said that salvation is simple. Why does Rabbi Berkson need 17 hours to explain it? I don't need 17 hours to explain it. Tried to explain it in 1 hour. Actually, in a few minutes in the 1 hour. And then because apparently that was just way too straightforward and simple, it needed 17 hours to explain what everybody's confused about. And really, it's not that. It's the relationship that salvation has with other things that takes most of the 17 hours. The salvation part I can explain in 5 minutes. But it's its relationship to faith and works that took 17 hours. And not because I take 17 hours to explain something. We had to go from verse to verse to verse, line upon line. But apparently it was, it's simple and straightforward, and that's why everybody agrees. Just like the biblical calendar. Everybody agrees. The nature of the Godhead. Everybody agrees. How the Ruach works. Absolutely no debate there. People sit back and say, well, we just need to be taught by the Ruach. Either the Ruach is confused or had a bad hair day or something, because not everybody's on the same page. Or maybe they're not all listening to the same Ruach. You could choose whatever you want to choose, how you want to understand it, but clearly we're not all on the same page. Look, even on the Christian side, did the Baptists agree exactly like the Lutherans do? The Lutherans do exactly like the Methodists do, or the Methodists like the Charismatics, or the Charismatics? Even within I could find 5 or 10, 20 different types of Baptists that don't agree with each other. Even within that. Okay? Even within a denomination. But yet, we're all after the simplicity that is Mashiach. He's simple. But you know why we're all screwed up with it? Because we filter it all through me. You're filtering it through what everybody's ever told you and what you like and you don't like, your preferences. and everybody else's preferences that have been imposed, because now some of those people are sitting on the throne in your head, and you've given them authority. And then you wonder why we need to go through this readings from Genesis to Deuteronomy every year, because every year, hopefully, a little more of the filtering is off, and you can receive it that much more clearly. Because some of you think, oh, I'm just so bored. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and every year we go from Genesis to Deuteronomy, and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you're thinking that way, you're going to get nothing out of it, ever. There's just no way you're going to get anything out of it. All right, did we stall long enough? You got more stuff going on there now, Manny? That was my just ad-libbing to stall. Okay, so we're going to take up some prayer needs, and then we're going to go into tonight's study. Okay, Rabbi Tom.
I thank you. I'd like to ask continuing prayer for Joanne with her eye problem. Her eyes are getting better, but she's not out of the woods, and she is slated for surgery one day before Yom Kippurim.
Okay.
And also I have a praise report. I got a call today from people I've dealt with for many years, North Georgia Mobility, and they have my new scooter, and they have my lift, and the local company here I did not want to deal with is out of the picture, and so we'll be able to go down, I think maybe Monday of next week, and I'll get a new lift and a new scooter.
Amen. Amen. And for all the little children that get rides from Rabbi Tom, the price is going to double for those rides. No, actually, he does it on Shabbat, so they're free, so never mind. Free on Shabbat, and other days too. Okay, so excellent. We're really glad that, because we've seen you dealing with this somewhat broken down vehicle that you have to ride in for a while, but hey, praise Yah, it's going to get done, and it's going to be the guys that you're comfortable with, that are familiar with you and your stuff, so that's going to be really good. All right, Charles.
Oh, there we go. Now it's on. I just want to ask continued prayers for our family getting settled in still, and for job situation for me. I've been filling out online, and I'm going in person, so just keep that in prayer, and prayers are much appreciated in that area, so thanks.
Amen. We pray you find work quickly and everything gets settled completely quickly. All right, anybody else? Okay, also you could pray for my wife, Rebbetzin Julie. She's got a little bit of a throat issue, a little sore throat thing going on, and we'll just pray that that does not, grow into develop into anything worse, that she's home tonight. All right, live stream.
Okay. Crystal, please keep my family in prayer. Sarah Beth, feeling a little under the weather, prayer that I recover quickly and some unspoken. Janice Schreiber, prayer please for peace in my job and for everything to come together for Sukkot. Alyssa Holmes, please pray for me because I am in a lot of pain tonight. Carrie's prayer for terrible stomach pain. Have a doctor appointment Friday morning. Lady D, prayer for my stomach. I think I have a virus. Not feeling the best today, but Torah study makes me feel better.
Amen.
Anonymous, Jeannie, prayers for all of us, Mishpacha, as we try to get ready for Sukkot. Prayer for leadership especially. She's super excited for Sukkot. Rodney, daughter is in labor right now. Please keep her in your prayers. Barbara Middleton, Shalom, pray for my grandson Joshua. Brandon prays that we were blessed to be at MTOI this past Sabbath and our travels were safe.
Amen.
Earl Lee, prayer for Kendall as he has pain around his eyes. Isabel, please pray for my brother's recovery from his motorcycle accident. Walk Softly, prayers for clarification on the job situation for both my husband and myself. Whatever that plan may be, praise report that our autistic daughter is doing well in therapy.
Amen.
Arthur and Linda, prayer request for Clifford who attends services with us. He had bricks fall on him, broke bones in his right arm and left heel. Prayers for speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
Shannon prays Abba that my husband joined our congregation's Yom Teruah celebration. Pray Abba will open his eyes and ears and soften his heart so he will see the truth, also for her mom. Mr. Steve Waffle, prayer for me. Evan chose to stay in California. Need help understanding what is going on with all this. Randy Baker, my husband Ed is literally on his deathbed. It's only a matter of time when Yahweh will let him sleep until the second resurrection.
Oh, okay. Well, Randy, I'm definitely here for you if you need to call, and we're here for you.
Absolutely. Arthur, prayers for Linda and I. We are both suffering from digestive issues. Let's see. Tony, prayers to find a less stressful job. My current job is affecting my current health situation. Selena, Tommy's out of town. Pray he doesn't bring random viruses home. Praise the boys are helping me a lot. Miss Mo, prayers my friend Mike as he may be losing his job and will be in need of a new one in Ohio. And that's it. Tons of unspoken prayers.
Okay, amen. Amen. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and make sure to pray for all those that have contacted us since the last time we've done this and include, all the unspokens as well. I'm going to have Michael, why don't you go ahead and open us in prayer and as well as for the prayer needs.
Father Abba, we come before you humbled, asking that you hear all of our prayers and praises, and we give that vertical honor to you for all that you do for us. And Father, that you would open our eyes and our hearts today to understand what is meant for us to understand. We ask this in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. So again, with the quick announcements. So to all of us that are here, this is going to be, and especially if you're online as well, this is going to be the last of our Torah studies until we get back. We're going to do one during Sukkot, so we'll do that online live. It'll be maybe a half hour earlier. Maybe it's 7:30 Eastern time instead of 8. It's on the Sukkot schedule. It'll be on the Tuesday, the 15th, I believe. And then the next one we will be doing will be on the 29th. We're not doing one on the Tuesday. We're returning from Sukkot. Okay, no Torah study on October 22nd. The next one will be on the 29th, okay? So we have one. So we'll be doing Breshit on the 15th, and then we'll do Noach on the 29th. Because Breshit would normally be what we would have done on the 22nd. We'll just do it a week early during Sukkot as a group together with 400 of our friends and family. I don't think I'll have a problem finding enough people to read. Might be more of a challenge with the 20 of you that are here. Okay, so that announcement, of course, then of course Yom Kippur is coming up on Wednesday, October 9th. We're not planning to do anything that Tuesday night before. I know I kept saying we might, but at this point, there's just so much going on, we're just not going to create another thing to do. And I think that I'd rather make sure that you have the time to be not distracted socially, but to be focused vertically. I like the way that came out. Don't be distracted socially, but be focused vertically, okay? All right, so we'll leave that time for that, and then we'll be here for services. Okay, so starting at sundown, you would cease and desist from eating and drinking, with the exception, and don't be a hero, don't be stubborn, don't say that you're showing a lack of faith, all right? If you have medical reasons and needs to eat because of medications or diabetes or whatever it is, then eat the minimum that you would need in order to meet those needs. You're not going to be disappointing in your Heavenly Father's eyes because He's allowed you to be in the condition you're in. And He knows the health situation that you have. So just be wise with that, okay? If you choose to try to fast, be very careful. Make sure someone's helping monitor you. You do not want to end up in a problem, all right? The rest of you that have no excuses, so to speak, or justifications, you need to go ahead and give this a good I was going to say a good try. Don't try, just do it, okay? And it's not that big a deal. I know some of you who've never done this are like panicking already. It's not that big a deal. As a matter of fact, if you're not even a believing person, covenanted, etc., just a worldly, secular person, there are people out there that fast on a regular basis because it's good for you. Okay, dry fasting is very good for you. Okay, now that being said, as a matter of fact, if you're not feeling good, those are the times that you probably should fast. And let your system start to break down all of the junk and get it out of your system. because as it needs energy and it needs sustenance, it will break down cells in your own body. And guess which ones it's going to choose first? We are fearfully made, wonderfully made. It'll choose the bad, junky ones first. Leave the healthy ones behind. Lots of studies have been done on this. So don't be afraid of it. And then the last thing I want to say about this, because I'll have only today and then on Sabbath to remind you, be excited when you start to have your stomach rumble, because that's when it's starting to have the most benefit. Because the point is you're supposed to feel hungry. And that will heighten your awareness of why you're hungry, which means that it'll remind you that you should not be distracted by anything. You'll be focusing on him. Because if you're just feeling wonderful, you could easily get distracted by anything. We'll all turn into ADD people. Squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. Because you're just going to think you have nothing to do. Well, you can study, you can pray, and start dealing with you and your relationship with him. But as that stomach grumbles, it'll keep you focused. So get excited, not upset like, oh man, I'm hungry. No, be like, oh right, I'm hungry. I struggle sometimes because I do fast occasionally, and so I'm not always hungry until almost we get here at 5 o'clock. Now, it doesn't mean that I necessarily get all distracted. I've been doing this my whole life, pretty much. Okay? I know I tell the story about how I grew up in a secular Jewish home, but once I turned 13, we fasted. Okay? We didn't keep a whole lot, but this is one of the things we did. So I've been fasting for, 43 years. So I don't get hungry necessarily that quickly. Now, some years yes, some years no. It just depends on what my body does. But for you, especially if it's your first time, it's when you become aware of that hunger. That's the best moment, because that's when you're going to realize it's working. I'm supposed to be hungry. And use that as an analogy for being hungry for him and for his word. Because it talks about a time where there'll be a famine of the word, not just a famine for food. So take advantage of that. Okay, so just kind of preparing you. Best way to get ready for the fast also is to just have a normal sized meal, hydrate yourself reasonably well. That doesn't mean guzzle water. Just have a decent amount. Don't eat a lot of things that will dehydrate you. No caffeine and that kind of stuff, because those are diuretics that will take the water out of you. No sodas and drinks like that right before you fast. And then you should be all fine. So you don't have to binge a giant meal before fasting. That'll actually make it worse. Okay? Just kind of go into it normal. And also, more importantly, don't binge it when it's over. You will regret it, trust me. Your system's been shut down for one whole day. Not a long time, but long enough for the factory to have been closed. And now you're going to turn all the machinery back on and overload it with everything you can get your hands on. Not a good idea. Okay? Eat some food, hang out with friends, make a little bit of a night of it, eat a little bit more food, spread it out a little bit. Give your system a chance to recognize what you're doing. Don't just start shoving the food back in your face. Okay? All right, so just realize that. All right. I think that's all I have for the fasting. Okay, so after that, of course, then we have Sukkot. We're getting all excited. What, do you have a question back there? Say it again. I did. That's where we started, but I know you're probably reading everybody's comments, so you didn't catch that. Medical conditions, don't fast, but just only eat what you need to for your medical condition. If you got diabetes, you got to keep your blood sugar a certain way, eat what's necessary. You got to have food with medication, eat what's necessary. It's not necessary to have a salad, a main course, and a dessert to do those things. Okay? Just eat what's necessary. Okay? And that, I don't know how else to put it. This is about integrity, okay, between you and him. And so let's see where your integrity is at. Well, actually, I'm not going to see. He's going to see where your integrity is at. All right? Absolutely take care of your health, but absolutely only do what you need to for your health. Okay? You don't need, a full giant meal to do that. Okay? Because I've had many moments, and all of you have, where you've forgotten to take your medicine, you've already finished for the day your meals, and you realize you have to eat with it. So what have you done? You found a little piece of something to eat with it so you could take your medicine. So you've all done that. You didn't decide, I'm going to go have another big meal just because I have to take my medicine. Okay? You just got yourself a little piece of something Just enough that you know now there's a food in your stomach to go with the medicine. So you all know how to do this. Okay, so then that heads us right to Sukkot. Yay! Over 400 of you are going to be there. 400 and, I don't know where we're up to, 30-something or 40-something. So we got a lot of people coming. Okay? So it's going to be the biggest Sukkot we've ever done. Very exciting. And, of course, it's a new property, which is also very exciting. So we're going to have a lot of patience necessary as we figure out the new property. And we're praying that all things will go well and smoothly and be to his glory and honor as we try to go to the feast. Just remember that if you go there and anything does not go exactly right, the more upsetting it is to you, the more you came there for the wrong reason. Okay? Just be happy you're there, and everything else will work out at some point. The staff will make sure that you're taken care of one way or the other. Just be patient. It probably goes smooth anyway. I'm just saying, this property knows what they're doing. They're very big. They handle groups like ours all the time. But I'm just saying, there's always going to be somebody that something's not going to go right for. And if it happens to be you, just realize that you're blessing others by being the one that volunteered to be the one that time. So the rest of us didn't have to go through that. Just say, okay, guys, I got you covered. I'm the one that's all messed up over here. Enjoy yourselves, okay? Anyway, so that'll be on Sunday. We'll be arriving Sunday the 13th. Now, the 12th, that Saturday, we will not be here. We're going to be up there as well. So the setup team is going to be leaving here on Thursday. So we could be there Thursday night, set up all day Friday, get it all under control hopefully on Shabbat, finish the setting it up on Sunday as people start arriving and get everybody checked in, and then we're off to the races. Okay, the whole thing is going to get going. And then that'll be the fastest 9 days of your life, pretty much, or 8 days of your life, okay? So Sukkot goes from Monday is the first holy day to the following Sunday. It's 7 days. And some of you guys say, well, I know on the 8th day of Sukkot, it's not 8 days. Sukkot's 7 days. The 8th day festival is a separate festival called Shemini Atzeret, or the celebration of the 8th day. Okay, so it's a separate event. And we could talk more about that another time. Okay, and that will be on Monday the 21st, and we'll be coming back on the 22nd. All right, that's my long-winded way of getting through all the announcements and everything else. So tonight we're going through 2 Torah portions. I know that's not the way it's normally scheduled for tonight, but we are going to go through 2 Torah portions so we can finish this up, knowing that next Tuesday, because we do this on Tuesdays and not on Shabbats, next Tuesday is Erev Yom Kippur, and we're not going to do it that night, and then we go right to Sukkot. So we're doing Ha'atzinu. Ha'atzinu means give ear, and we're also doing Vezot HaBracha, the blessings. This is the blessing, Vezot HaBracha. And so that's going to take us from Deuteronomy chapter 32 to the end of the book. So we're going to read chapters 32, 33, and 34. All right, so I've got 9 readings, if people want to come up and start lining up. Got 9 readings for tonight. And the way this will work is I will call up each reader one at a time. We'll say a brief blessing over each reader, a traditional blessing, and then I'll let you know what verses you're reading, where you're starting, where you're finishing. And so we have 9 of those. We got 5 in Ha'atzinu, which is just chapter 32. And then we've got the rest for the very brief chapter 33 and 34. Okay, the other 4 readings, okay? Because those are very short chapters. Okay, that being said, I'm going to just read a brief intro here in chapter 31. So at the end of chapter 31, which leads into this Torah portion reading, we'll go with verse 28. It says, "Assemble unto me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, so that I speak these words in their hearing and call the heavens and earth to witness against them. For I know that after my death you shall do very corruptly, and turn aside from the way which I have commanded you. And evil shall come to you in the latter days, because you do what is evil in the eyes of Yahweh, to provoke him through the work of your hands." So Moshe spoke in the hearing of all the assembly of Israel the words of this song till their completion. So that is the lead in to chapter 32, which is the song of Moses here. Now, this is for all you Christians out there. Now notice what he said. because they did corruptly and turned aside from the Torah, the way. What's another synonym for the way? Yeshua is the way, right? The way, the truth, and the life. So they turn away from the truth, they turn away from the Torah, away from Yeshua, did corruptly, and how did they do this? Through the work of their hands. So it doesn't say that the work of Torah was the problem. See, in the latter days, people are saying that the work of the Torah provokes him. Isn't that what they're saying? But no, he's saying your failure, your corrupt way of doing Torah has provoked him. Okay, and this is important. All right, so we're going to read the Song of Moses here, chapter 32, and then we'll continue through 33 and 34 to finish this up. All right, so we'll begin with Michael. Michael, come on up. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michael, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Michael, in chapter 32, read the first 10 verses.
Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak, and hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my instruction fall as rain, my speech drop down as dew, as fine rain on the tender plants, and as showers on the grass. For I proclaim the name of Yahweh. Ascribe greatness to our Elohim, the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are right ruling. An El of truth and without unrighteousness. Righteous and straight is he. A twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. Their blemish, they are not his children. Do you do this to Yahweh, O foolish and unwise people? Is he not your father who brought you, who created you and established you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father and let him show you, your elders, and let them say to you, when the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the numbers of the children of Israel. For the portion of Yahweh is his people, Jacob, his allotted inheritance. He found him in a wilderness and in a wasted, howling desert. He encompassed him. He made him understand. He watched over him and the apples of his eyes.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Michael. Okay, Christina? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Christina, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 11 to 20.
As an eagle stirs up its nest, flutters over its young, spreading out its wings, taking them up, bearing them on its wings, Yahweh alone led him, and there was no strange mighty one with him. He made him ride in the heights of the earth, and he ate the fruit of the fields. And he made him to draw honey from the rock, and oil from the flinty rock, curds from the cattle, and the milk of the flock, with fat of lambs, of rams of the breed of Bashan, and goats with the choicest wheat. And you drank wine, the blood of the grapes. But Yeshurun grew fat and kicked. You grew fat, you grew thick, you were covered with fat. So he forsook Eloah, who made him, and scorned the rock of his deliverance. They moved him to jealousy with foreign matters. With abominations they provoked him. They slaughtered 2 demons, not Eloah. Mighty ones they did not know. New ones who came lately, which your fathers did not fear. You neglected the rock who brought you forth, and forgot the El who fathered you. And Yahweh saw and despised, and because of the provocation of his sons and his daughters. And he said, let me hide my face from them. Let me see what their end is. For they are a perverse generation, children in whom there is no trusting.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Christina. Okay, Shira. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Shira, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, take us from verse 21 to 31.
They made me jealous by what is not El. They provoked me with their worthless matters, but I make them jealous by those who are no people. I provoke them with a foolish nation. For a fire was kindled in my wrath and burns to the bottom of Sheol and consumes the earth and its increase and sets on fire the foundations of mountains. I gather evils upon them. I use up my arrows upon them, wasted by scarcity of food and consumed by heat and bitter destruction. And the teeth of beasts I send upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust. The sword bereaves from the outside and fear from within, both young man and maiden nursing child with the man of gray hairs. I said, I should blow them away. I should make the remembrance of them to cease from among men, if I did not fear the enemy's taunt, lest their adversaries misunderstand, lest they say, our hand is high, and Yahweh has not done all this. For they are a nation lost to counsel. There is no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this. They would consider their latter end. How would one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight unless their rock had sold them and Yahweh had given them up? For their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies are judges.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Shira. Okay, Tricia. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Tricia, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from 32 to 43. 32 to 43.
Their vine is the vine of Sodom and of the fields of Amorah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of serpents and the fierce venom of cobras. Is it not stored up with me, sealed up among my treasures? Vengeance is mine, and repayment at the time their foot slips. For near is the day of their calamity, and the matters prepared are hastening to them. For Yahweh rightly rules his people, and has compassion on his servants, when he sees that their power is gone, and there is no one remaining, shut up or at large. And he shall say, where are their mighty ones, the rock in whom they sought refuge? Who ate the fat of their slaughterings and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise and help you. Let it be a hiding place for you. See now that I am he, and there is no Elohim besides me. I put to death and I make alive. I have wounded and I heal. And from my hand no one delivers. For I lift my hand to the heavens and shall say, as I live forever, if I have sharpened my flashing sword, and my hand takes hold on judgment, I shall return vengeance to my enemies and repay those who hate me. I make my arrows drunk with blood, and my sword devours flesh. With the blood of the slain and the captives from the long-haired enemy chiefs. O nations, acclaim his people, for he avenges the blood of his servants and returns vengeance to his adversaries, and shall pardon his land, his people.
Amen. Amen. Okay, May? Okay, thank you, Tricia. Okay, May? Well, watch out for that speaker. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless May, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us from verse 44 to the end of the chapter.
O nations, acclaim his people, for he avenges the blood of his servants and returns vengeance to his adversaries, and shall pardon his land, his people. Then Moshe came, and Hosea, son of Nun, and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. And when Moshe ended speaking all these words to all Yisrael, he said to them, Set your heart on all the words with which I warn you today, so that you command your children to guard to do all the words of this Torah. For it is not a worthless word for you, because it is your life. And by this word you prolong your days on the soil which you pass over the Jordan to possess. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe that came that same day, saying, Go up this mountain of the Abram, Mount Nebo, which is in the land of Moab, which is opposite Jericho, and look at the land of Canaan, which I give to the children of Israel as a possession, and die on the mountain which you ascend, and be gathered to your people, as Aaron your brother died on Mount Hor, and was gathered to his people. Because you trespassed against me in the midst of the children of Israel at the waters of Meribah Kodesh, in the wilderness of Sin, because you did not set me apart in the midst of the children of Israel. For you are to look at the land before you, but not enter there, into the land which I am giving to the children of Israel.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, May. All right, I got 4 readings left and 4 readers. Rabbi Tom, I'll have you go last, and then you can close us up. Okay, Charles? He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Charles, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, we're in chapter 33 now. Read us verses 1 through 7.
And this is the blessing which Moshe, the man of Elohim, blessed the children of Israel before his death. And he said, Yahweh came to Sinai and rose from Seir for them. He shone forth from Mount Paran and came with 10,000 of set-apart ones. At his right hand a law of fire for them. Indeed, he loved the peoples. All his set-apart ones are in your hand, and they that sat down at your feet receiving your words. Moshe commanded us a Torah, an inheritance for the assembly of Jacob, and he was the sovereign in Jerusalem when the heads of the people were gathered and the tribes of Israel. Let Reuben live and not die, and let his men be numbered. And this of Yehuda, and he said, Hear, Yahweh, the voice of Yehuda, and bring him to his people. His hands shall fight for him, and you be a help against his enemies.
Amen. All right, Michelle. All right, thank you, Charles. Okay, Michelle. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Michelle, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, you're going to take us now from verse 8 to 17.
And of Levi he said, Your Tumim and your Urim belong to your loving committed one, whom you tried at Massah, and whom you contended at the waters of Meribah, who said of his father and mother, I have not seen them, And he did not acknowledge his brothers or know his own children, for they have guarded your word and watched over your covenant. They teach your right rulings to Jacob and your Torah to Israel. They put incense before you and a complete ascending offering on your slaughter place. O Yahweh, bless his strength and accept the work of his hands. Smite the loins of those who rise against him and of those who hate him, that they rise no more. Of Benjamin he said, let the beloved of Yahweh dwell in safety by him, shielding him all the day as he dwells between his shoulders. And of Joseph he said, blessed of Yahweh is his land, with the choicest from the heavens, with the dew and the deep lying beneath, with the choice fruits of the sun, with the choice yield of the months, with the finest of the ancient mountains, with the choicest of the everlasting hills, with the choicest of the earth and all that fills it, and the good pleasure of him who dwell in the bush. Let it come on the head of Joseph and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. His splendor is like a firstborn bull, and his horns are like the horns of the wild ox. With them he pushes the peoples to the ends of the earth, and they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh.
Amen. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, Brianna. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Brianna, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Brianna's going to take us now from verse 18 to the end of the chapter.
And of Zebulun he said, rejoice, O Zebulun, in your going out, and Issachar in your tents. They call peoples to the mountain. There they slaughter slaughterings of righteousness. For they draw from the riches of the seas and treasures hidden in the sand. And of Gad he said, blessed is he who enlarges Gad. He dwells as a lion and shall tear off the arm, also the crown. And he chose the best for himself, for there the portion of the inscriber was hidden. And he came with the heads of the people, the righteousness of Yahweh he did, and his right rulings with Israel. And of Dan he said, Dan is a lion's cub that leaps from Bashan. And of Naphtali he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with pleasure and filled with the blessing of Yahweh, possesses the west and the south. And of Asher he said, Asher is most blessed of the sons. Let him be accepted by his brothers and dip his foot in oil. Your sandals are iron and bronze, and your strength as your days. O Yeshurun, there is no one like El riding the heavens to help you, and on the clouds in his excellency. The Elohim of old is a refuge, and beneath are everlasting arms. And he drives out the enemy from before you, and says, destroy. Thus Israel dwells in safety, the fountain of Yaakov alone, in a land of grain and new wine. His heavens also drop down dew. Blessed are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by Yahweh, the shield of your help, and he who is the sword of your excellency. And your enemies are subdued, for you and you tread down their high places.
Amen. Amen. All right. Thank you, Brianna. Okay, Rabbi Tom's going to read the final reading. You can stop right there. That's fine. The piano's already got enough of a beating. And listen, these scooters are great, but they don't come with rearview mirrors.
Almost ran your daughter over.
There you go. All right. She moves a little quicker than the piano, though. Okay, here we go. Last reading, and then when you're done, you can give us the closing chazak, okay? All right, here we go. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Rabbi Tom's going to read chapter 34, which will complete our readings for today and our reading of the book of Deuteronomy and the Torah cycle.
And Moshe went up from the desert plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which is opposite Jericho. And Yahweh showed him all the land of Gilead as far as Dan, and all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Yehudah as far as the western sea, and the Negev, and the plain of the valley of Jericho, the city of palm trees, as far as Soar. And Yahweh said to him, This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Yaakov, saying, To your seed I give it. And I have let you look at it with your eyes, but you do not pass over there. And Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, died there in the land of Moab, according to the mouth of Yahweh. And he buried him in a valley in the land of Moab, opposite Beth Peor, and no one knows his burial place to this day. And Moshe was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not dim, nor his freshness gone. And the children of Israel wept for Moshe in the desert plains of Moab 30 days. And the days of weeping and mourning for Moshe were completed. And Yehoshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, for Moshe had laid his hands on him. And the children of Israel listened to him and did as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And since then, no prophet has arisen in Israel like Moshe, whom Yahweh knew face to face. For all the signs and wonders which Yahweh sent him to do in the land of Mitzrayim, before Pharaoh and before all his servants in all his land, and for all that strong hand and all the great and fearsome deeds which Moshe did before the eyes of all Israel. And together we say, Hazak, Hazak, Vinit, Hazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened.
Amen, amen. Thank you, Rabbi Tom. All right, one more time, everyone together. Chazak, chazak, benis chazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened. Now, I'm not yet 60 years old, and I think some of my freshness is gone, and my eyes are dim a little bit. So I don't know how Moses did it 120. That's pretty impressive stuff. Yeah, he did. All right. He wasn't eating the junk food that we eat either. He was eating better quality stuff there. All right. Fantastic. All right. Okay, so much to everyone's surprise, we're going to spend the next hour explaining all the prophetic things in chapter 33 and 34. No. Some of you are like, no, we know you, Rabbi. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get into, how many do we got on there now, by the way, just curious? 289, awesome, almost 300 people, or computers or whatever. And welcome to all of you. Okay, so we just read the Torah portion, and I just want a really quick announcement, just to remind everybody, so you have Atonement coming up on Wednesday the 9th, then we have Sukkot, obviously starting on the 13th into the 14th over at Black Mountain, North Carolina. We will not be here for services on the 12th. We will be here this week, but then not on the 12th. That'll also be in North Carolina. So those of you that are not leaving at that point yet to come to the feast site, which most of you are not until Sunday, then we'll be live streaming it, and you'll be having to watch that as everybody else is doing usually. Some of you say, I remember how to do this because you used to do it before you moved here. Okay, so you're quite familiar with how that works. And another reminder for all you people who are part of our Torah study each week, this was the final one for the cycle. We will be doing one during Sukkot on Tuesday, October 15th, and then the next one after that will be 2 weeks later on the 29th. We will not be doing one on the 22nd, okay, because that'll be the day we're all traveling back from Sukkot, and we will just, quite frankly, be too exhausted. Okay. So this way we don't fall behind in the cycle. We'll sneak one in during Sukkot, and then we'll be caught up perfectly by the 29th. Okay, so that being said, we're going to go ahead now and go into the discussion portion. Now, as always, as we go through the discussion, and I know you'll be very surprised and shocked to know that I actually spent time writing out notes today. You know, I actually wanted to know where I wanted to go with this particular portion, and I looked at my notes from previous years and found that I didn't have any. I must have had other people do the end of Deuteronomy instead of me or something. I don't know what happened. So I wrote down some really important things for us to discuss. And and somebody thinking, but you're the rabbi, what do you mean? Look, I can read the Torah portion and I could talk about it for days probably, but I wanted to write down very specific things so that we would stay focused and not miss the important points. And there's some really important points here, because look, you got to remember what we're dealing with here is the book of Deuteronomy is, in essence, it's the contract. I mean, this is the covenantal contract. It's the overview discussion about how they ended up where they are as they're about to cross over the Jordan, you know, all the different events that got them from slavery to freedom, and not just freedom, but to go from serving one master to switching to another, et cetera, et cetera. And there's also the discussion about what they were expected to do, how was there was also a discussion of what Moses and, quite frankly, our Heavenly Father expected that we would do, and what we wouldn't do, and what we shouldn't do, and all of that is discussed quite in good amount of detail. And so, as always, as we look through this, I want us to do what we always do, which is look for what we can glean from the portion and apply in our own lives as we are working in our transformation process of changing from what we are into what He is. But also look at it not just from this ending part, because this ending part is a summary, okay? It's a summary of a lot of the things that have been going on. And even the song kind of summarizes the whole rest of the book up to that point. And so, you know, the end time stuff at the end where there's some blessings, and some of that stuff may be not just so end times, maybe just for very short future times, because a lot of it is just nice things He said about everybody. Okay, this isn't like some of the stuff that we see Jacob saying over his children, and not all of it's also good. But this is, you know, He says some nice things about everybody. So we're not going to worry about that as much. But what we are going to do is identify very clearly where Moses is buried, because that's the important piece. I'm kidding. I just wanted to see if you guys were paying attention. All right. So mostly we're going to spend time, I think, in chapter 32, because there's some really good things there. If you listen to the teaching, Yeshua, the rock, a lot of it is connected to this portion, okay? So there are some, the word rock is mentioned actually 3 or 4 times here in the song. Okay, so Yeshua the rock, and you can see connections to Him in there, okay? And so we'll definitely cover that quite a little bit. So I'm not so much looking for questions and comments that way. I'm going to throw a few things out there, and then we can get some comments and questions, because I want to start a little discussion about some of these things. So starting in chapter 32, and in verse 2, I think it's really a wonderful picture for us to picture. He says, my instruction, my Torah. See, Torah is not the law. You know. It's the instructions from Yahweh. It's His wisdom and His guidance. And we want to look at it as the law, you know. And what we find out actually in reading the scripture here is that Israel fought the law and the law won, actually. So, you know, just had to get a song reference in somewhere. And so don't recommend you try it, because the law will win every time. Okay, but he says, don't look at it like that. He says, look at it like this. He says, let my instruction fall as rain. And not just rain, because you can picture rain as being pretty violent. You can picture thunderstorms. He says, no. Like rain, my speech drop down as the dew, as fine rain, like a mist on the tender plants. and as showers on the grass. So he's talking about something very gentle, nourishing, soothing, cooling. So like in a hot day, they even put these like in the amusement parks, right? Those sprays, and it's not blasting you. It's just a gentle spray of a mist that kind of makes you feel better in the heat. He says, let my instruction fall in that way. So the plants, the tender plants, okay, so first of all, he recognizes that we are tender plants, meaning that we're fragile and we're subject to, being damaged, hurt, or damaged easily. Okay, damaged, hurt easily. He says, so my instruction is meant to be gentle and nourishing and refreshing. Beautiful picture there in chapter 32, verse 2. He says in verse 4, and this is where I think we're going to start heading towards some discussion here. So in verse 4, he says, the rock, his work is perfect. Now again, those who only read their Bibles in English are very much at a disadvantage in understanding what they're reading. Contrary to some of the people out there that are just spewing all kinds of nonsense, some of them are attacking me, some are attacking each other, what they're doing. They're all claiming what the Bible says according to the English translation they have. But the English isn't always giving you the full picture. What word do you think, and you'd be right, is underlying this word perfect? What's the Hebrew word? Come on, I've taught you. Tamim. Tamim, and actually that's literally the word it's under. It's not even a derivation of the word. It says tamim, okay? So tamim, much better translated as being filled with integrity, as opposed to this idea of flawlessly perfect. Although here we are talking about the rock, that his work is flawlessly perfect. But it's trying to convince us to understand that his work has integrity totally filled through it. And that's something that we're looking to develop as we're becoming him. Okay, his work is filled with integrity, for all his ways are right. That's why there's integrity in it. For all his ways are right ruling, an El of truth and without unrighteousness, righteous and straight is he. Awesome. So there we have again this idea, Yeshua, the perfect rock, filled with integrity. And it's important that we get the connection between integrity, because there's no way that we would ever be perfect. We're told very clearly in Scripture that all have fallen short, all have sinned. There's only one exception, our Messiah. But the thing is that we can at least strive for integrity. Okay, that's what we can head for. Perfect? No. But in our effort to be perfect, we can at least demonstrate a level of integrity. Integrity is how quick you hit the floor when you've messed up and you realize you've messed up. Integrity is how well you take correction. Integrity is what you do after. Why is King David so important in your scriptures? Why is he a man after Yahweh's own heart? Because of the level of integrity he had. He did not point the finger at anyone after it was shown him that he had done something. He didn't excuse it. He didn't deflect it. He owned it. He fixed it. Whatever level was fixable. At that point, not much. But he set forth not to do it again. And then he released it so it didn't destroy the rest of his life, and he moved forward. This is the important thing, though. He had the integrity to immediately say, I have sinned. How many times does he have to beat you on the head sometimes before you realize, oh yeah, maybe I need to own this? Sometimes you struggle in your life, you're not realizing the reason you're struggling is because you have some part that he's trying to show you that you just refuse to acknowledge as yours. Because you want to have it be everybody else's fault. That's why a lot of times when people come to me, I've had more than one time where people come to me about somebody else, and then I'll always look them there and go, okay, that's great, but what was your part in this? Well, what do you mean? It didn't happen in a vacuum. Okay, if you were involved and someone else was involved, you have a part in it. Oh yeah, but it was their fault, but you have a part in it. What was your part? So you guys all come under the category of, like in car insurance, no fault insurance. Something happened, but it's nobody's fault. The real world doesn't work that way. But we can have integrity, and we can own the stuff. So after he says that, though, look what he says in verse 5. This is where we're going to have a little discussion. He says, a twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. Their blemish, they're not his children. Okay, so now he's saying, okay, do you do this to Yahweh, O foolish and unwise people? So when we do these things, we demonstrate that he is not our Father who brought us, who created us, who established us. All right, so here's the discussion. What do you think he means by, what does it look like in today's modern world to be a twisted and crooked generation that has corrupted itself? Now, bear in mind, I'm going to preemptively strike. He is not talking about worldly, uncovenanted people. This conversation is only about his people who have twisted and crooked. They're a twisted and crooked generation. He is not talking about, as you might want to think, worldly people, as you would like to maybe a phrase, or secular people, or those outside the camp. Although he's going to tell you why they ended up outside the camp, those that should have been in the camp. So if you want to raise your hand, Michael can bring around the mic. Or we have, okay, Brianna did. Okay, you can raise it. And then if you're on live stream, that's okay. Rayden's got to run to the camera. There we go. And then you can type something in, and Manny can kind of keep track of that. But I mean, I think it's important that we understand that he is talking to the people that are his people, and he's saying, this is something that you need to, remember the song was to be learned so that you would not make the mistakes that are in it. So you need to understand what those mistakes are so that you can be aware if you're actually falling into them. Okay, Brianna?
In verse 7, when it says to remember the days of old and consider the years of many, am I correct to assume that it's like you shouldn't just throw away the old law and just stick to the New Testament?
Okay, that's not a bad way to look at that necessarily.
When you celebrate the feast, you're looking back on what happened in Egypt or any other kind of feast.
Okay. I'm going to say that verse 7 is actually a real answer to the part of our solution, but I will take it in a slightly different direction than you did. But look, remember, it's not always going to be yes or no. Sometimes it's both or more than one. It's not just both. It could be 3, 4 things can all be true. Okay? It's not like with Tevye where he says, you are right and you are right. They can't both be right. You are right. Okay. So, all right. But in this case, they all can be right. So Brianna, what she gleaned out of it was the idea of said, well, remember days of old and consider those things and just recognize that these things that were done of old, I'm going to take it a step further to say that as you're doing these foolish and unwise things, it could be because you're not asking your father or the elders and let them say to you. Okay? See, we have no structure again. There's no authority that we're going to because he said, look, he says, do you do this to Yahweh, O you foolish and unwise people? Verse 6. He says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations. Ask your father and let him show you, your elders and let him say to you, when the Most High gave nations their inheritance, so let somebody wise and instructed and older guide you and say, this is what we're dealing with here. Do you understand who Yahweh is? Because if you did, you wouldn't be doing this crooked and foolish and unwise stuff. Okay? Rabbi Tom.
Okay, thank you. As you pointed out in verse 2, instruction is equated, and teaching, of course, is equated with rain and dew. And if we go over to Zechariah chapter, the last chapter, verse 17, it says, in it shall be that if any one of the clans of the earth does not come up to Jerusalem to bow himself to the sovereign Yahweh of hosts, on them there is to be no rain. And if the clan of Mitzrayim does not come up to enter in, then there is no rain. And and correct me if I'm wrong here, but how I take that is if there are people who can go, I know we're not really keeping Sukkot, we're rehearsing it, But if there are people who can go to Sukkot and they choose to stay home, or they choose to just build a sukkah in their backyard or something, then they're missing out on all the instruction and teaching that's available there. And they're really shortchanging themselves very much.
Amen. Amen. Look, some people say, yeah, but you're going to live stream everything. Not everything. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that you will miss out on. A lot of it will happen, late at night sitting in the lobby somewhere, okay? And a lot of instruction can come out of that. There's a lot of things that will go on after the camera's shut off. And a lot of the instruction, by the way, might not necessarily come from a teacher. It may come from observation. You may be instructed watching people. See, maybe you're new at this and don't know what it looks like to walk this out, and you might really get to see some good examples of that. Or maybe you struggle a lot and you realize that you saw some bad examples of it too, and that you realize you're not the only one that struggles. But there's lots of instruction that you can receive from the group dynamic. You may realize how much you struggle interacting with people. That's kind of the reason why we do the big group dynamic, or I should say the reason he instructed us to do the big group dynamic is so that you can rub up against each other and realize how we irritate each other. And that stuff needs to be worked on. After all, we're going to be spending, hopefully, forever with each other. At least that's the hope, the thing that we hold onto as our anchor, is that idea that we'll be. See, a lot of us only want to think about forever individually, and we forget that it's not just you and Yahweh and that's it. I mean, there's going to hopefully be all of us there and millions more. And if you haven't figured out how to like people and have people like you, well, then that's part of why you're still here. Because we're talking about what I call the forever community. I mean, that's what Yahweh's plan is, to have a forever community. All right? So, well said. And he says, look, but when you look at it in Zechariah, the thing is, it says if they don't come down, they're not going to get instruction. Well, it's also can be translated into English a little better. Like, if they don't come down, it's because they have no rain. They have no instruction. If they had instruction, they would come. But they've clearly been dry ground that has not accepted the rain. And if ground is dry enough, the water won't absorb. Not initially. And some of you need a soaking to break through some of that hard, dry ground. I don't mean in some charismatic way of soaking in or whatever you want to talk about. Some of your brains are going, what? No. I mean the metaphor of the water. I mean, you have to really put a lot of water on some really dry ground to finally get it to break the surface tension and to start getting absorbed. Because it won't absorb the water when it's so dry. It just rolls right off. And a lot of people are so dry that the instruction that they receive just rolls right off. It doesn't seep in, it doesn't soak in. All right, who wants to go next? Okay, Shira, as I turn back to Deuteronomy.
Yeah, this whole thing about no blemish, I just thought of in Revelation, the bride has made herself ready. And she has no spot or wrinkle or blemish in her white garment. So, when Yahweh calls them Yeshurun several times in these two passages, I believe I understand that is when he was pleased with them, it was a term of affection. You would have toward a bride. So then he says, they're not my people. And I mean, it's like Hosea, when he was in Hosea and just said, Lo Ami, name him Lo Ami. You're not my people. I can only put up with so much twistedness and crookedness and sin before I have to utterly reject you in order for you to find out what it's like to be without me and come back to me.
Amen. Amen. I mean, this goes back to what I said before we started the study. You see, in the simplistic understanding, if we're going to look at English as the language, which it's not, okay, you can find that it's not completely unreasonable for people to struggle in a New Testament English understanding with the idea that since you can't keep the law perfectly, and all have sinned and fallen short, then why would we need to keep some? I mean, they get confused because of this idea of needing to be perfect. Now, again, that's where it takes an instructor to help you. Maybe you don't have access to an interlinear. Maybe you've never thought to go back into the Hebrew or the Greek and to understand the words that the language was written in. And to see that it's not looking for perfection as we would normally think, meaning never, ever making a mistake. Because that's a standard that we would all fall short of, and then it's over. There's nothing to do. Which is why the Deuteronomy 8:2 test, as I call it, is so important. The idea that he wants to see where our heart is at relative to our desire to accept the reign of his word. And that by the way, could be R-E-I-G-N just as much as R-A-I-N. I mean, the reign of his word, either way, in our lives. And so that's where it's important to look at the underlying Hebrew there and see that, there's no thought about actually being perfect. It's the wanting to be, desiring to be, striving to be perfect. Because after all, we're told to transform and conform into the perfect, the only perfect one. So it's our goal. Paul tells us in Ephesians 4 that the fivefold ministry is there so that we could be instructed, that we could be edified, we lifted up and helped in the process of coming into the fullness and completeness of that perfect that is Messiah, the perfectness that is Messiah. So that's our goal. We are never going to make it there in the flesh, but what we're trying to do is show our Father our heart's desire. Because if you don't really want it, why would he want to give you forever to not really want it? He wants to spend forever with someone that absolutely knows how to love him with all. And you can fill in the rest of it, right? Might, strength, being, etc. And that's a heart thing. He's got to see the integrity of our heart. Because you can say the V'ahavta, but then, things get in the way of this Torah observance or that Torah command, or, it's inconvenient, or you just got complacent and forgot about it or something. So you're not checking labels on your food like you should, or, you know what? Trumpets showed up and you totally forgot to take off from work. And, then we go through the long winter and you forget when Passover is, even though these things sneak up on you. You know what? When you had first fallen in love with anybody, because some of you maybe never got married, but if you're old enough to have ever fallen for somebody, a crush, whatever you want to call it, did you remember and look forward to any time that you had scheduled to meet with them? Okay, it's Tuesday and you're going to go out Saturday night. All you're thinking about all day Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is, I'm going to go see him or her, whatever, on Saturday night. Well, you're meeting with your king on these holy days. Are you thinking about it? Are you excited about it? Do you look forward to it? See, it's all about the integrity of the heart. Said, but, this people are, because of that lack, what do? They twist and corrupt. They're crooked. Okay? I like the way that it actually reads in the English, the idea of twisting. It's the idea of being perverse. What is it talking about? It's not talking about the things that we normally think of as sin. It's talking about taking what he says and misappropriating it, misusing it, twisting it, perverting it in some manner. I would guess that 99% of the time it's because it's to your perceived advantage. That's a key phrase, I think. You twist the scripture because of a perceived advantage to you. You think that you benefit somehow. You get away with something. It helps something in your life. But does it? Does it really? I find story after story of the person that went into work because they were offered double time on Shabbat, and let's say they got $800 for their double time or $400 for their double time, and guess how many times that within a week or two something breaks or goes wrong in their life that costs them the same amount of money that they just got. And they thought that they had an advantage. And Yahweh will take it right back and say, nope, doesn't work that way. Now maybe you get away with it for a little while. It doesn't happen right away. But then you wonder why you're going to the doctor and that costs money. And maybe your tires all of a sudden keep finding a nail even though they're brand new. And you wonder why that keeps happening. See, because you're doing other things. And you're not honoring him in your actions. You're only honoring him with your lips and that kind of stuff. He said, a twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. That's the hard part right there. You want to blame everybody else. It's my parents' fault. It's my husband's fault. It's my wife's fault. It's my kid's fault. It's the rabbi's fault. It's Yahweh's fault. You know, it was quoted earlier about the bride making herself ready. She does that. It's not done for her. She makes herself ready. And here, the generation that didn't make itself ready corrupted itself. The problem is self. Very important. And so what is he watching? Yahweh's watching what the self is going to focus on. The bride who made herself ready was focused on him. The person who corrupted itself, the people here that corrupted themselves, were focused on themselves. Is that clear enough? We could just end right with that. I mean, if you can't figure that out, you're not going to get anywhere. If you can figure that out, you don't need anything else. Because with that, you'll figure everything else out. If you can figure out that the bride who makes herself ready is focused on him, and the person who corrupted themselves is focused on themselves, and you could choose to be the bride, then you'll figure out how to do your focusing on him. And when you focus on him, guess what you'll learn? You'll learn through the gentle, loving dew and the rain that falls how to please your Heavenly Father. So this is really important, okay? Because this is your biggest quicksand, biggest pit to fall in, is the way we bend and twist the word to match our own preferences, our own desires. And so that's really, it's very important. And the cure for that is in verse 7. He says, look, go talk to the people who have more experience than you in Yah. He says, ask your father, ask your elders. So what do? We go and find people that have been doing this 5 minutes longer than us and think that's an elder. Some of them haven't even been doing it as long as you, and you don't even know it. But they have YouTube channels. And they sound good on a microphone. And so you listen to them. Go back to the schoolhouse model that I use. Some of you online have probably never heard this. A lot of you heard it before. But generally speaking, if you want to learn a subject matter, you're not going to go to a third grader to figure it out. Or a fifth grader. You probably want to find somebody who's graduated and has a degree in it. They have training in it. I'm not just talking about school. I mean, let's say you're wanting to go to an auto mechanic. You'd like to find someone who's certified that actually has training as an auto mechanic. Let's say you want someone to fix your air conditioner. You'd like someone that's licensed and certified in air conditioning. Let's say you want a doctor. You know what? I don't think you want someone who didn't go to medical school necessarily. I mean, I know there's a lot of alternative medicine stuff, but even alternative medicine guys, those guys can hurt you worse than help you if they're not well trained. And so, are you going to ask your father? By the way, he says ask your father. You should have one, whether physical or spiritual, so to speak, but you should have somebody that's in a father role. If you're married, your husband can have that role just fine. Okay, because that would qualify under who you're supposed to go to for leadership. Men, but if your wife's coming to you, who are you going to? They're coming to you. Now you're in trouble because now they're coming to you. And you're sitting there thinking, but I'm like the third grader. What do I know? Especially because my wife's been doing this 2 years longer than me. I'm not saying that about myself. I'm saying, but some of you are probably thinking that because your husbands came in after you did. Well, I'm going to go to my husband. He just came in 6 months ago. I've been doing this for 10 years. Show him respect, but you husbands, you need to know what you don't know. That's when you need to find the elders to counsel with and say, my wife came to me and I told her, sweetheart, I will find out that answer. Be comfortable to say, I don't know, but I'll find it out. It will help them to know that you are covered. Now, of course, if you're going to call your best friend or some other person that has no authority and is not an elder, that's not going to work. If you're going to call the people from your old church, that's not going to work. Because some of you are going to do that. You're going to default back to what you're familiar with. Find elders and those experienced in Yah, in Torah, in halakha. That's what you need to find. Okay. And by the way, I was watching something the other day, and I think that it made a really good point. Some of you need to know that there's a difference between what we call a halachtician. In other words, a halakha is the walk. We'll call it someone who understands the laws. And all a halachtician is going to do is he has a memory, has a sort of the law memorized. But you're looking for a parsik. A parsik is somebody who can take a broader perspective on the depth and parameters of the law and understand more the fullness of the intent. Where the halachtician is just black and white, literal, and it's very hard to understand how to take some of these literal things that don't apply exactly the same today as they did then. And actually the things today that they never even heard of back then that we have to deal with. Things just didn't exist, all the technology and whatever. So you want to find a wise parsik, someone who has an understanding of halakha, but can also understand how to apply it under certain circumstances and be able to tailor things, not by bending or twisting, but appropriately understanding, for example, that if you're diabetic, that you need to eat something if your blood sugar gets out of whack on Yom Kippur. The halachtician is going to tell you no. It says don't eat, don't eat. You understand what I'm saying? Okay? And so there's a need for that. So you need to pray for wisdom to find the people with the wisdom. I've been saying that to you now for, 4 or 5 years. I mean, I've said it on and off much longer than that, but I mean, I've really been saying it a lot for the last, 3, 4, 5 years. Your job is to find the guys here in verse 7. Who's your quote-unquote father figure to go to? By the way, why does he say father in this verse? Ask your father. Because the idea of father is the one who loves you more than anyone. I'm not saying a mother doesn't, but I'm saying, but has the responsibility of protection and keeping you safe and providing. Mothers are looked towards for the nurturing. Okay? This isn't a nurturing thing. You're looking for somebody, as you're getting in things out of whack, who's going to set you straight. Correction tends to come from the father. Mothers do it, and then they look, when the kids don't listen, they say, wait till your father gets home. Then correction will come. Not that mothers don't do the correcting most of the time. But if there's any struggle, and this is what's happening in these verses, there's a struggle, right? The corruption, the twisting, the perverting of what's going on. And so it's saying, okay, that's when we need dad to show up and say, this stuff is stopping right now. Knock it off. Set it all straight. And if you have a good husband, a good father in the house, the mother can use that to her heart's shalom, content, to say, no problem, children. We'll let dad take care of it when he gets home. And the children are like, no, it's okay. We'll take care of it right now. But that only works if the relationship between mom and dad is right, and if dad knows how to come home and do his job and back mom up. Okay? Otherwise, it doesn't work. And those children should not be just quivering afraid because dad's a scary man, but they should be afraid that they're going to disappoint their father. See, if their father loves them and cares for them and is the proper father, then their biggest concern would be, letting him down. The same applies to us in our relationship with our Heavenly Father. Our biggest fear with him should be to disappoint him. Listen to the fear of Yahweh teaching. Being afraid of having him kind of hang his shoulders down and put his head down and kind of shake his head and look at you like, I can't believe you did that. Why would you do that? And then you're crushed because you realize you disappointed your father. Now, a lot of you had horrible fathers, so it's a hard concept. But let this be a lesson to all the men that if you have children, it's never too late to become that guy. You need to become that guy. Okay? And if you're in leadership, you need to be that guy for the whole congregation. It's important. All right, because that's really the biggest thing here. We are a people that are covenanted. We're all excited proclaiming the name of Yahweh, verse 3. We're saying ascribe greatness to Elohim. We're all excited, kind of like the ones that were in the different sower the seed thing, the ground, the different ground. And we're the ones that got all excited only to go and do other things. Except instead of just leaving because there's no roots, we're going to stay in there and we're going to corrupt the rest of it like weeds. The wheat and the tares, right? We're going to be like weeds spreading amongst the garden. A twisted and crooked generation has corrupted itself. And so they're showing that they're not his children. You claim to be his children, though. That's really a problem. So then, now here's the question for everybody. It says that they neglected the rock in verse 18. It says, you neglected the rock who brought you forth and forgot the El who fathered you. Okay, so what does that look like? How do we neglect the rock? Anybody? How do you neglect the rock?
By not obeying?
No, it's neglecting the rock is why you don't obey. So how do you neglect the rock? Okay, Brianna's got her hand up. Bring it over to her. Very brave of you after I didn't agree with your last one. I'm only teasing you. I'm very proud of you taking the mic. Go ahead.
I mean, negligence is like purposely or like it's not directly like you're like purposely not doing it. Your priorities aren't in check. Like you're more, I'll do that later, but the other stuff's more important somehow, even though the other stuff is even more important.
Correct. Perfect. Her answer was perfect. People aren't perfect, but that answer was perfect. Priorities. All right? Getting your priorities out of whack. Hasatan's greatest leverage tool, whatever, is to keep us distracted and busy with all the stuff that gets our emotions going. Because if somebody gets you upset enough, you're no good for hours. I mean, you can't do anything. You can't focus on anything. By the way, on the good side, if you're on the more the manic side, if you're way over the top and you're all excited, you're useless for hours too. You ever see somebody, like a teenager, all of a sudden is goo-goo-eyed over somebody, or even an adult? They're useless. Any kind of really over-the-top emotional place can distract you from your focus. And you can become completely useless because your priorities are all out of whack. By the way, we do this more often with things like the latest, greatest, what I used to call, new doctrinal understanding crack. I said people were addicted to that kind of crack. The latest and greatest, let's just get all upset about the shape of the earth and spend 40 hours a week studying that. Because it's so important. And I just triggered a whole bunch of people. Good. Some of you need to just work on that things trigger you, because now that you're triggered, you'll be useless too. Because if I could trigger you, that's uselessness. Why would you let anything I say trigger anything? Or anything anybody else says trigger anything? Remember I taught in developing the character of Yeshua. You need to become a selfless like him, and a selfless person cannot be triggered, cannot be offended. So if I can trigger you, there's too much you involved. And I might try on purpose and I'll look you in the eye and go, see, it's still there. Because I've seen people triggered and they'll be like, why is this blah, 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 blah? And I look at them in the eye and I go, see all that? Whatever that is, that's why. Abba let it happen because all that is still in you to get triggered. And whatever that is needs to be dealt with. I've said that 8-10 times just in the last 2 weeks to people. Something came up. Some of the things that came up had nothing to do with the person I was talking to. Didn't happen to them. They weren't there. They weren't involved. They heard about it. Okay? And yet they decided to own it in some way, and it triggered them. I'm like, I don't even understand why you're upset. None of this had anything to do with you. You weren't involved on any level whatsoever. So nobody in this room is anybody I'm talking about, in case anybody was wondering. But I mean, these are the kind of things that people will allow other things that come into your experiential space. One of your senses got aware of something. You heard it, you saw it, you touched it, you smelled it, whatever it was. And guess what happens? It triggers something. And why did it trigger? Because it's stuff that needs to come out and be dealt with. And so what do? We neglect the rock. We're not praying like we should. We're not studying like we should. But it's not just praying as like, okay, I log time in prayer. Or I'm logging time reading words on a paper called the Scriptures. Are you spending time looking at these things like we did today, hopefully in a transformative way? I'm looking to read today to learn something about me in comparison to him so I can bring them closer in alignment. Or I'm looking today to read more about him so I can learn about me. And you can do it from either direction. You know, I read a lot of personal development stuff over the years, and I'm always reading them for the same reason. That's why maybe I read the Scriptures different, because I always read those books the same way. I'm looking through those books, not because I'm going to buy everything into everything that they say, but I'm looking for a nugget, a thought, an idea, a clarification, a concept that can help me transform into what I think I'm supposed to be. Now, once I became aware of Scripture, I realized that something I'm supposed to be is him. So we neglect the rock when we do some of the mechanical stuff we're doing instead of doing it from a right perspective. Because some of you, I study every day. Well, what does that mean anyway? You read the words? Okay, well, I pray every day. So what does it mean? Your mouth moves a lot, or you just sit quietly? I mean, what is your focus? Where are your priorities? What are you hoping to accomplish? You know, I hate to sound very, modernistic, new agey, whatever, but, what is your intent? When you go into these things, do you have an intention? Okay, I try to set your intention when we read the Torah portions to look for you. You see them, but do you see you? Can you relate to Moses? Can you relate to the people messing up? Can you relate to maybe Dathan or Aviram or Korah? Who can you relate to? Can you relate to Sarah laughing? Can you relate to Adam and Chava and their struggle right there at the beginning? Can you relate to anything in the story? And in doing so, then you have ways to now measure you, and then you also see him, and you compare, and you're trying to bring the two into alignment. But he's not going to move towards you. You got to move towards him. So we're bringing the two into alignment by you moving in his direction. But you study to look for those distinctions, those clarifications. Is this making any sense? Okay. So this is why I've avoided doing this Torah portion for so many years. I knew I was going to just get on the soapbox. Okay. Actually, I don't think I've ever avoided doing it. It just worked out that way. All right, who's next?
I had a thought.
Okay.
That that chapter is completely a song. Mm-hmm. And children, a lot of times when you want them to remember something, you present it to them in a song so that they can remember it.
Yep. Okay. So now, in this whole thing we're reading about neglecting the rock, the next part is and forgot. So it's not like in neglecting the rock you actually literally forget. But it's like you're forgetting who you're dealing with. It's like when a parent has to show up to a child and say, apparently you forgot that I'm your father, I'm your mother. Apparently you forgot who you're dealing with here. Okay, so it's not like you just forgot that there's God and there's a creator that made you and brought all this into existence, but your awareness of really who you're dealing with is greatly diminished. Because maybe you did something and he didn't zap you right that second. Maybe something happened and it appeared you got away with it. And so complacency kills you. You become jaded and complacent, and that leads to a very slow but steady death. Okay, who's next? Christina?
I appreciate a lot you going into detail about the what the word perfect means, because when I was a teenager, I would read that and I would try so hard, and I never could make the mark, and it was impossible, and I tried so hard. But now that it makes so much more sense, knowing that it means, filled with integrity. And so when I read the scripture, I've been noticing that and understanding that a little bit. And then that was the comment. And then I have a couple of questions. So in verse 30, it says, how would one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight unless the rock had sold them and Yahweh had given them up? Okay, so my heart's desire is to understand that scripture because it's been misused so much in the genre of the people that I used to associate with.
Well, okay, so anybody want to comment on that? So what is that talking about where it talks about the setting to flight? It's very simple. I could do it in less than 17 hours. That's an inside joke. Okay. So we're in the book of Deuteronomy. There's a chapter known as 28. And in the blessings and cursings, it talks about people sending a small number, sending a large number to flight. And in the curses, it says that a small number will send all of you to flight. So that's all he's talking about here. I mean, this is a reference back to chapter 28. So this is in verses 29 through 31. So it says here, if they were wise, they would understand this. They would consider their latter end. If they were wise, they would understand the blessings and the cursings. How would one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight unless their rock had sold them? And thus you have the cursing chapter explains this to you, doesn't it? And this is really what we have to remember when we're looking at the curses. Okay, let me just kind of get to it really quickly if I can find. Yep. Well, it's the blessings and curses listed in two places, but okay, it's 25, yes. Okay, right. He says in 25, it says, Yahweh causes you to be defeated before your enemies. You go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and you should become a horror in the reigns. But there's also places where it talks about setting to flight, and it may be in one of the other places where it talks about the blessings and curses. It could be the one in Leviticus. Let me just see if I can see where it is. Come on, Raymond, if you're online, you could find the verse for me real quick. He's always good at that. Okay, that's the one with the 1 ways and 7 ways, but there's another one. Where? That's where it might be. It might be in chapter 26, right? On Leviticus 26. Okay, yeah, that's where the other curses chapter is, blessings, curses. Let's see if that's what I'm looking for. Yes. Okay, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you. I knew it was Leviticus or the Deuteronomy one. So it says, and 5 of you shall pursue 100, and 100 of you pursue 10,000, and your enemies shall fall before the sword. Okay, but now we're talking about the opposite of that happening. Okay? So in the opposite of it, it works in the reverse. Do we see that? See, when we were not sold out, so to speak, he says here in the, it says for their rock, it says Yahweh had given them up. It said unless their rock had sold them, and Yahweh had given them up. Because normally it would work the other way when they were being blessed. Thank you for finding it. It was Leviticus 26 or Deuteronomy 28. I just couldn't remember which one. Okay, excellent. And so that's the memory trigger, though. Your brain should be going, there's a verse that talks about a small number chasing away a very large number. Okay? And now you can see it working in the reverse in this case because they are failing to do what they're supposed to do. He says, if they were wise, they would understand this. But they're foolish. They would understand how one can chase away 1,000 and two can put 10,000 to flight. In other words, the rock has moved. Wake up, geniuses. You think you're covered. You're not covered anymore. And really, we're the ones that moved out from under the covering. Okay, so that is one of the verses I wrote down here. So thank you for bringing that out. Excellent for asking that question. But did that help answer it then? Okay. Whoop.
Sorry. Yes, thank you. My other question is, I've been kind of struggling a little bit, and I feel like there'll be other people that will relate, so that's why I'm asking this openly instead of privately. So we were talking about the dew and the rain and all of the, and you've been talking a lot in the last couple of months about the parable of the sower, and talking about how we need to prepare our own hearts and our own ground and all of that. I've gotten to the point where there's so much garbage from the other, it almost feels like I need to like root everything up and just throw it away and then get rid of the rocks. I don't know how to do that. So when you're talking about, sometimes the ground is so dry that it takes like a big soaking and all of that is like imagery that I'm understanding, but at the same time, how do we, practically speaking, be able to prepare ourselves so that Yahweh can place those things in us so that we understand things better? Because I feel like there's like some kind of shield, some kind of something over my eyes. I can't see straight, and it drives me crazy.
Okay, well, that's where counseling does come into play. Look, when you're working with a garden, okay, you're getting ground ready, and so the first time you're working with it, okay, you have a patch of ground. It's really easy and not very intrusive to the ground at all to pick the rocks up off the surface and the twigs and the debris. And that's what most of us do. We get rid of the very easy to get rid of stuff on the surface. But then we find something that's deeper in the ground. It doesn't even look very big necessarily, and we realize it's just a little pointy part of a very big rock, but most of it's under the ground. So you got to start tearing up the ground. Or like you get a tiller and it starts tilling up the ground. That's kind of violent to the ground. And that's what this is going to feel like in your life, too, is having to till up and dig up some of this stuff. And it's a big upheaval in your life to get some of this stuff out. And if it's something that has roots, those roots can go really far down. And you pull and you tear it off. And so what a lot of you do is you tear it off. And a lot of you, when you do that, you've missed most of it because it just tore and left most of the roots still in the ground. And then you come back next year and it's grown back. And then you wonder why these things come up. Well, I thought I uprooted it. No, you tore at it. But you never got all the roots out. You're going to have to dig in there to get the stuff out. And that's not fun. Just like if the ground had feelings, it would not be fun. You're not going over gently, smoothly with your hand, just moving stuff around on the surface of the dirt. And clearing off the rocks and debris actually probably feels good to get all that stuff off of it. But all that stuff that's buried into it and stuck in there, getting that out, that's rough, I mean, even think about, some of you have gotten a tiny little splinter sometime, and that's no big deal. You just go ahead and get it out. Some of you ever gotten a real big one, deep? That's a whole nother story, digging that out. And you got to dig it out. And it hurts. And it takes a lot. And so, hey. Now, here's the difference. A splinter, if you leave it alone long enough, will probably work itself out as your different layers of skin do what it does. The rocks aren't going to work themselves out in your life. You're going to have to work those things out. You have to deal with them. And now some of them, you're going to quarantine, even if you can't dig them out, but at least you can kind of separate them out, put a fence around them so that they can't affect the rest of the garden. We'll figure out ways to do what needs to be done with these things. Okay? But that takes counsel. And that means that you have to trust in a level that's frightening, to be honest. It is. Because you have to be very open and vulnerable to deal with this very hard stuff. And then, of course, you hear other people talking about the ogre that the rabbi is, and then you're afraid to do it. When you should be talking to the people that have actually done it and hear what they've experienced. Because almost everybody that will tell you otherwise has never really ever talked to me. Okay? But if you talk to somebody who really has talked about really deeper stuff and gone through their healings in the deeper stuff, that might be a person to talk to. Okay? But that's where, again, if you're studying enough of the Word, things should be that line upon line thing, or that triggering of connections. Okay? So when you see, oh, how can one chase away? How can a small number chase away a big number? Brain goes, I know I've read that somewhere before. It's in the curses. Now, I just did this quickly today, threw the notes together, and I thought it's either Deuteronomy 28 or Leviticus 26. Didn't look it up. I just knew the reference, so I wrote down, this is what I wrote for the verse. I said, if they were wise, they would see the curses of whichever, Leviticus or Deuteronomy, coming on them and know the cause. They would see that that's what that is. Instead of going, I don't understand how this happened. And the outside observer, how many times have you, especially when dealing with children, child does something, cause and effect goes into play, and they come to you looking like, I don't understand. You go, well, let's see. You did that, and naturally that happened. Why are you so surprised? Well, I don't know. I only ate 47 raspberries. Okay, well, they're strong things, raspberries. Listen, I went strawberry picking one time. Thought it was great. You could eat as many as you want. Pick them right off the vine. Strawberries are not something you can eat that many of without getting sick. Okay? Tastes great until they hit that moment, though. Okay? And you can eat a lot of them because they're small. It's not like apples. You can't eat enough apples to really get sick. You'll be full before you get sick. But strawberries? And so, but here it is, this is cause and effect. You do stuff, and then you look at the person like, why are you surprised that blew up in your face? Well, I don't know, I just poked the bear. Yeah, well, see, then that's what happens. And I talk to husbands and wives all the time, and I say, but you know this already. You know each other, why did you do that? I don't know. Worse, why are you acting surprised? Has this ever happened before? Yeah, 57 times. Oh, so we're really shocked. And that's what's happening here. He's saying, listen, if you were wise, you would understand this. This was prophesied on you. So you wouldn't be all like sitting there going, no. All right, so, in verse 21, so remember we were just talking about not forgetting and neglecting, and then he continues and he says, for they are a perverse, in other words, they're twisting the truth generation, children in whom there is no trusting. That is our problem, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, whatever you want to refer to each other. Okay? We don't trust. You know what the word is underneath that word? Emun, femunah. So we're not talking about trust like bitachon. This is emunah. This is the faith, the trust, the belief that everything is under control. Because this whole song is about believing and understanding and trusting. Yahweh's got it all under control. Just get behind and follow him. He's saying, but this is a children in whom there is no trusting. Emun. He said, what did they do? Verse 21? He said, they provoked me with their worthless stuff. Now, bear in mind, I'm going to interpret this way, all right? It's when you go to him like, hey, Daddy, aren't you so proud of me? Look at what I did. And it's worthless stuff because he gave you stuff to do that you're not doing, but you're thinking you're impressing him with all this nonsense that you are doing because you think it's impressive. But he already tells you how to impress him, but you want to impress him with your worthless stuff. Look at how amazing I can accomplish these wonderful things that really don't impress him. Okay? And continuing, he goes, verse 28, a little further down, it says, for they are a nation lost to counsel. No wonder there's no understanding in them. They're lost to counsel. See, we don't want to counsel. Oh, everybody's online still having the same, there he goes again. He just wants everybody, blah, blah, blah. I didn't write this. I challenge you, take me anywhere in the book, and within 15 verses, we're going to find something that shows structure and authority is the problem, or our inability to get under it correctly, or to put it in place correctly. I'm not writing this. Already in the song, 3 or 4 times he's mentioning the idea that he says, go ahead and remember the days of old. Ask your father, ask the elders, get in line with counsel. Here's another one, a wise nation. They would go ahead and get some counsel. But this one is a nation lost to counsel. There's no understanding in them. You need counsel to get to understanding. See, but you want to figure it out all for yourself. Oh, but the Ruach teaches me. Ruach is teaching you a lot of stuff, but you're not paying attention. Ruach is trying to tell you need to get to counsel. But you're not hearing what the Ruach is telling you. He said if they were wise, they would understand this and they would consider their latter end. In other words, you would figure out where the path you're on goes. Not the latter end like some eschatology thing. If they were wise, they would figure out going on my own without help and without counsel is not working. Not now, and it's not going to, it's like, you keep banging your head on the wall thinking you're going to get a different result. If you keep doing it, by the way, at some point, have you not really gotten the t-shirt that says, I've tried it my way and I'm ready to try something else? I mean, how many times does your way have to not work before you get it? Yes or no? Okay? But we don't want to hear that. He said if they were wise, they would understand this and they would consider their latter end. The results of doing it. Oh, but I keep figuring I'm just going to keep doing it and it's going to get a different result. It doesn't work that way. You know that. I used to say as a joke, I said it to somebody yesterday, the same thing. The only difference between genius and stupidity is genius has limits. Think about it. Okay? That's the main difference. He said, but they're lost to counsel. There's no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would figure this out. Verse 35. I'm going to sneak in one more thing here at least. For all those of you that think that you need to go set everything straight and defend Yahweh and everything else, he says, vengeance is mine. End of story. Drop the mic. That's it. And repayment at their time, their foot slips. For near is the day of their calamity. He says, look, this is my stuff. You don't need to go ahead and go out there and correct everybody and whatever it is that you think you need to do on Facebook and everywhere else and blah, 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 blah. Vengeance is mine, he says. So let's leave it to him. All right? You don't see me out on the internet posting all kinds of things, attacking everybody. And setting them straight for all their posts. I don't troll other people's posts. That's what we're talking about here with vengeance is mine. Oh, well, somebody needs to, say something against all their dumb stuff. Why? Put out your own good stuff. That's the way you kind of battle against their dumb stuff. Otherwise, you look as dumb as them, going and joining the fray. He says, vengeance is mine. See, when you do it, when you take vengeance into your own hands, you're showing that you're not paying attention. You're missing the point. Let's not do that. Okay? Let's definitely not do that. And quickly squeeze in, let's see. Verse 46, set your heart on all the words which I warn you today. That was something that was brought up earlier. Set your heart. That's a you thing. You set your heart. Listen to the heart of the matter teaching. It's only 64 parts. Don't be intimidated. But you need to set your heart. I'm sure we use that verse in the teaching. Okay? You need to set your heart. You know why? For it is not a worthless word for you. Verse 47. Because it is your life, and by this word you prolong your days on the soil which you pass over the Jordan. Oh, but that Torah, that bad, evil Torah stuff that none of us could do, and, well, it was done away with because it was awful. Really? Set your heart on all the words which I warn you today, so that you command your children to guard to do all the words of this Torah. For it is not a worthless word for you, unless, of course, you cause it to be worthless by focusing on your worthless matters. See, the value in it is yours. In other words, you decide if you take advantage and do it and put it to the test and work with it and follow and submit yourself to it, value beyond value. If you take the information in and do nothing with it, it has no value. If I give you $1 million and you just stick it in a closet forever, did it have any real value at all for you? No. But if you took it and went and bought things with it and used it for things, there's value in it, right? And we're talking about something you think has high value, $1 million. But I mean, if you just stuck it in a box in a closet somewhere and that was all it ever did with it, what would be the point? Or maybe you brought it out and made stacks out of it and played with it or whatever. It's no value. So he gives you the most valuable thing there is, his word, his instructions. You get to decide how worthwhile they are or not based on your choice. He's telling you it is not a worthless word for you. It is your life if you choose to do that. And by this word, you can prolong your days. But you could choose to look at it as of no value. Moses tells us, I lay before you life and death. Choose life. Life is doing the word, covenanting. Death is not doing the word, not coveting. Not covenanting. Easy for me to say. All right? It's not a worthless word, but what are you going to hear every day on Sunday preachers saying? Oh, that stuff was, that was for them. It's of no value. As a matter of fact, you try to do it, you're mocking the death of Messiah and all this other stuff. There's a guy out there that was attacking the Hebrew roots, and he calling Yeshua, and using his instead of calling him Jesus, and he's called Torah observance, and he said Sabbath, feasts, not eating pork was evil and wicked. There's a Baptist preacher. Okay? He said that to say that those things are actually, so Yahweh said it. I'm trying to wrap my brain around how anything Yahweh said could turn into evil and wicked when he said it was good and it was for our blessing and it's not worthless. But now it's evil. You need to be prepared for that because this Baptist preacher and some of his disciples or whatever are putting out a hit piece on the Hebrew Roots movement. They're putting out a movie. They wanted me to be interviewed for it. I told them no. Once I knew who was doing it and what it was about. I mean, I said stronger things than that, but that's okay. I told them that the Baptist preacher didn't know his knee from his elbow, and I didn't say knee. Okay, so I thought I would pass. And I'm sure they're going to use that to come out again. Can you believe this rabbi said that? I can't help it if the guy's anatomically challenged and doesn't know the difference. It's not my fault. He thought Sabbath keeping, feast keeping, actually he's probably got a lot more bigger problems than the anatomical ones because he thinks that those things are wicked and evil. That's what he actually described Torah observance as wicked and evil. Incredible. I was surprised lightning didn't hit him at that moment. It was unbelievable. Okay? I mean, he was this is a few years ago. Videos are still out there. But now they're making a movie. Any of you other guys out there, and I know a few of you that he told me where they were going to interview this movie, you guys don't fall for it. They're going to do an interview with you, and they're going to chop it up and make you look like idiots because that's the point of the movie. And so I said, I'll pass. I mean, first I was pretty excited. The guy said he's doing a movie about the Hebrew roots. I'm thinking, we've had a few of those out there before. So I said, what's the point of yours? He said, well, I got to be honest. It's a negative piece. I said, oh. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you guys believe salvation by works. I said, not exactly. But see, he thinks we lie about that. And that's because there are some of you guys out there who are confusing the you-know-what out of everybody because you're teaching everybody it's salvation by faith alone, but then you tell them, but that you have to do the works, and that confuses them all because you don't know enough to separate salvation from reward. And that's what took me 17 hours to explain. Salvation doesn't require faith. Salvation doesn't require anything. It's a free gift given to everybody that ever lived or would live. whether you get to enjoy it and on what level has to do with you, what you do. That's reward separate from salvation. And if you don't understand a word I just said, you have to listen to the teaching. It's called Are You Saved? Okay? And that's where it breaks down. So I said, not exactly. So he said, well, that's why I want to interview you. And I was like, Then he goes, well, by the way, so-and-so, he said, do you know so-and-so? I said, yeah. I said, the Baptist guy? He goes, yeah. I said, because then he explained that guy helped get him out of the Hebrew Roots movement. He was in it for a few minutes. Now, of course, he was in it from age 17 to 19. I'm not even sure he was able to drive yet. And he was trying to figure out what to do with his whole life. But anyway, so he thought he understood the movement because I know a few 17 and 19-year-olds who have no idea what we're doing. Okay? I didn't have a clue about any of this stuff till I was 23. But anyway, it's fun stuff. Let me tell you the level of scholarship. Okay? So the one gentleman says, I'm sure that Mr. Berkson understands that at Passover, they only put blood on the doorpost once. Once saved, always saved. And then when they passed through the sea, they only passed through it once. Once saved, always saved. That's twice. I literally almost fell out of my chair when I heard him say that. I laughed. I was at Five Guys with the guys, and I'm watching this thing. See, once saved, always saved. That was the same group of people. That was the doorpost and then the sea. And by the way, that once saved, always saved only worked for 2 of the 603,550. So apparently it doesn't work that way. Bad scholarship. Yeah, same guy. Okay? So this is a new video out there attacking me. I'm not against the video. I think it's hysterical. I think it will, if anything, will grow after it because people are going to want to know what I had to say because they're not going to want to know what this guy is so embarrassingly poor in his scholarship. Especially, I love that once saved, always saved. I could do the math. That was 2, not 1. Same group of people. It seems to me that it's almost like he thinks he's talking about 2 different groups of people. It was only like a couple of days later. They went from Egypt, doorpost, to passing through the sea. Twice saved, always saved? I don't. But they weren't always, because how many times, you've heard me do the teachings, he had to save them over and over again to the point where, do you remember when Yahweh said, I'm done, I am not saving you again? Remember that? He'd already saved them a dozen times. He said, I'm done. You guys don't listen. So much for once saved, always saved. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Baptists will just call them backsliders. They get in anyway. Because I asked a senior Baptist pastor that one time. So what do you call a guy that's quote unquote saved and then he's going into sin? Oh, we call them backsliders. I said, if he dies while he's backsliding, does he still get in? He goes, of course he does. I looked him in the eye and said, then what's the point? Do you understand how dumb you sound? And he looked me in the eye and he says, you're going right to hell. And I looked him in the eye and I said, no, I'm there now. Listening to you. All right, never mind. Okay, most of that conversation happened that way. The last part I added my own. He did say that I was going right to hell. And so, anyway. Actually, I had left the room and he actually said that to Julie. He said it to my wife. Big mistake. But anyway, it was too funny. Because I asked him to explain to me John 15. After all, if you're once saved, always saved, then how does those branches that stay in me, those branches in me that don't stay in me, get thrown in the fire? And I handed him my book. I said, can you please explain this to me? And he looked at me. I was handing him, it was literally this book right here, this Blue Scriptures, the same one. I went to hand it to him. And he looked at me like I was handing him a bomb. He was like, he goes, I don't know that translation. Because John 15 reads so different in other translations. So I said to Bob, the guy whose place was at, I said, do you have a King James? He goes, sure, pulls it off the shelf, open to John 15. I go, here you go. Now can you explain it to me? He goes, you're just spiritually blind. I said, so if I wasn't spiritually blind, it would just like be obvious or whatever. Yeah. Okay. At that point, I needed an aspirin or a Tylenol or a drink or something. I mean, it was just, how do you have those conversations? You know. But I did literally say to him, then what's the point? When he said that the backsliding guy gets in. What's the point? If everybody gets in, then that means it's going to look like what we have right now. That's hell. Okay? As anybody might describe it, because I think all of us can agree we'd love for this thing, whatever this is, to be done with already. Okay? So if everybody gets in, no matter what they do, whatever, just because they confess that they believe Messiah lived and died and etc., but they don't change or transform, or what's the point? Then why is he making us wait for 2,000 years? Why didn't he just come then? I mean, apparently growing and transforming and maturing is not important, then what is he waiting for? You know, what's the point? But see, I'm making a mistake. I know I'm bringing logic into it and rational thinking, and shame on me. Anyway. So apparently twice saved is always saved, or something like that with these. That was the most unbelievable thing. Some of you will go out there now and look for it. You'll find some hit piece on me, just came out a couple of days ago, whatever, and you'll find it's hysterical. It's only about 8 minutes long. But who is this person? Should I out him? No? You'll find him. It's just all about me. My name's in the title of it. What? He did do me publicly. His name is Matt Powell. There you go. Look for him. Get ready for what? He's already sent us threatening emails saying how he's going to threaten me. Right? He sent us a threatening email. He's going to expose me. Oh, by the way, according to him, I am one of the leaders, one of the major leaders of the movement. Apparently, he hasn't interviewed any of the other leaders in the movement who would argue against that vehemently. Since I don't get invited to anything that any other quote-unquote Hebrew roots movement people are leaders in, but, you know. So anyway, apparently, you know. And I'm sorry, he also said that I'm the most wicked of the leaders. Yes. I want a t-shirt that says, most wicked Hebrew roots teacher. You know. That's right. And the back of it will say twice saved, always saved with thumbs up, 2 thumbs up. Twice saved, always saved. Okay. Anyway. See, this is for me like group therapy. I'm just venting, getting it out there, having a good time, you know. Can we talk? I'm getting a little verklempt. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, that's an old Saturday Night Live flashback for anybody old enough to remember. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and end this thing. I think it's getting crazy enough. Anybody else need to go? We didn't even talk to anybody in the live stream yet, but go ahead. Shira, you can go.
I just keep thinking of what happened the last time somebody criticized your teaching of, are you saved?
Well, you ended up here.
That's right. But there's a whole lot more like me out there, and you just better get ready.
Yeah, the first time I was attacked for that teaching 8 years ago, Shira got an email about it, ended up watching the teaching, loved it, ended up contacting us and moved right down here. And she started the trend of people moving here to be a part of the group. She was first. You know, started the trend. Okay, live stream. For the brave ones that might want to take a shot after the role that I'm on.
Okay, there wasn't too many, so this should be quick.
All right.
Let's see. Rodney Shipley, update on his daughter, baby Lily, is here.
Yay!
Greg Wallen wanted to make a comment. 32:7 also says, let those experiences show you and say to you, and we may not be letting their words, instruction sink in.
Thank you, Greg. That's excellent. That's an excellent observation. I've often told people in Philippians 2:5 is the same problem. The three-letter word that messes everybody up. It says, let this mind be in you. That's the Messiah Yeshua. That let is the big problem. Everybody's worried about four-letter words. I think the three-letter words are really the bigger problem. Okay? Go.
All right, MTOI Philippines Jet, when you were talking about the feelings and stuff earlier, he said, Rabbi, would it be possible for me to feel that pure loving emotion from somebody like you that even my own parents could not give?
Is it possible to feel what?
Is it possible to feel that pure loving emotion from somebody like you that even my own parents could not give?
Yes. I mean, it's possible that you can feel, if you didn't have a proper father, if you didn't have a proper something that another person can actually fill that role at some point in your life, then that is absolutely not only possible, I would almost hope that you would find it so you would know what it feels like to have that proper relationship that you never had. Okay? Yes.
Okay, Sarah Beth, 32:25, fear kills and is a punishment, so why do we choose to live in fear?
Amen.
And then just one random question here. How do we become more like him when we have psychological problems? I'm not who I used to be, and it makes me sad and scared I may lose myself, so it makes it hard to become like him.
All right, if you have, and we almost all do, some sort of psychological, emotional stuff going on, it's really helpful to get help. I mean, most of us are undiagnosed, but almost all of us could be. I mean, most of you already recognize that I'm insane. So that'll go now viral. See, Rabbi admitted it, he's insane. Okay? All right? And so, but we all struggle, and we'll talk about this even more, I think, during Sukkot when I do the 2 Up to the Challenge classes. But we do have a lot of psycho-emotional issues, which is why we talked about putting the feelings in the bag and getting them off the ground and struggling with that self and the I and the me and all that other stuff. These are all psycho-emotional issues. We have a psychologically, emotionally bound or messed up part of us that makes it really hard to do all these things. Nothing he wants us to do is hard, except that he wants us to do it. You put that on a t-shirt, okay? I mean, nothing he wants us to do is hard. Problem is he wants us to do it. That's where it becomes hard, okay? He's expecting people to figure this out. But people are just overrun with psycho-emotional problems. Insecurities, feeling inadequate, fears, just running, overflowing in every direction of everything and anything. We have all kinds of just self-worth issues, validation issues, pride issues. I mean, we can just go on and on and on and on. And nobody's exempt. Any of you thinking, well, I don't have any of that. Well, that's because you haven't been diagnosed. Okay? We don't need a label to know that everybody you talk to has got something. Okay? It's almost better if you got diagnosed, at least you know what it is. Okay? All right.
All right, April wants to know, chapter 33, tribe of Shimon is not mentioned. Why did they not get a blessing?
Sorry, told you we're not going there.
Lisa Hersey, Rabbi.
I don't know why he's not in there. I haven't looked at that part of it to figure that out. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I do not generally spend a lot of time on the, eschatology-related things, like trying to figure out why somebody's in there, why it's not, what this is all of those sort of things that can be looked at prophetically from that point of view. That's not what he's called me to do. He's called me to help you figure out what you need to do, not what you need to know. But what you need to know is the things that you need to do. And so figuring out why Shimon is not in there is not going to affect what you need to do. Okay?
Lisa would like to know, Rabbi, the drought in Australia has been around 7 years in some places, worst I've ever seen. Is it reasonable to think this is a curse and why it's happening?
No. And for all the climate change people and everybody freaked out about all that stuff, all these things are cyclical, okay? They change in different parts of the planet from time to time. You know, if you're old enough, you remember, some of you are old enough, remember they were talking about another ice age coming back in the 70s. And then all of a sudden that shifted to global warming. Well, that's an interesting shift, okay? We're afraid of an ice age. Nope, we're afraid of a meltdown. I think you had a meltdown, okay? I also remember the Dust Bowl years is what they talked about back in the day, where there was like the whole Midwest, you know, and all the whole, our breadbasket of America was just nothing. Okay, I don't say I remember personally, but I mean, you read about those things. I remember there being such water shortages where we had to ration water everywhere, and we had to be careful with watering our lawns and everything. And there was like all kinds of reservoir problems and droughts, and these things happen. Okay? And so what they're happening now, if it's the worst that it's been in a long time, well, there's been worse, trust me. Okay, you just got to find some people that have an understanding of history. Hurricanes have been worse, earthquakes have been worse, you know, floods have been worse, droughts have been worse. It's kind of cyclical stuff. And so it's not that you want to look at it as punishment. You know who gets punished? Israel. Not the nation from 1948 necessarily. The nation that's covenanted is told that they will be cursed when they break covenant. Guess what? They don't exist anymore as a cohesive nation. So then there are those prophetically who want to say, well, that's why he's punishing this country or that country, because that's where they got scattered. They got scattered everywhere. Okay? Everywhere. So every country goes through its roller coaster. All right? Because they get scattered everywhere. Now, if he's punishing other nations, how does he do that scripturally? What hammer does he use? Israel. So Israel doesn't exist to use as a hammer. So he's not punishing any of the other nations at this point. His hammer to hammer other nations was Israel. He said, you're going to bring my judgment. Yeah. So they're not available to do that at the moment. Right? Yes? No? We following this? Okay? But, everybody wants to figure out, prophetically, like Armstrong's group back in the day, the British Israelism and who is the U.S. and Britain in prophecy and how that's where Israel, everybody wants to try to figure out all that eschatology things and look at their country. And it basically really matters what country you're in when you're trying to figure this out, because you're going to see it differently because you're in that country. Because you want to believe somehow either that your country is cursed because you'd like it to be, or that your country is blessed because you'd like it to be. So you're going to try to figure out how prophecy is talking about your country. Prophecy doesn't care about any of those things. It only cares about Israel, okay? And not the 1948 one, the nation made up of people called Israel, all right? The covenanted Israel. And right now, they are not a nation. They are scattered. Okay, what's next?
Dale Hersey has a comment. He says, I'm thankful that I'm no longer searching out the crack stuff in Christianity. Thanks, Rabbi, for not watering it down.
You're welcome.
Let's see. That's it.
All right, awesome. Fantastic. Well, Manny, go ahead and close us. You got the mic. Go ahead and give us a closing deal here, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Abba, Father, thank you so much tonight for all the food that we've received through Rabbi. I ask your hand over all of us as we go home. I ask your hand over this ministry, over Rabbi, over our leadership. I ask that you help us to receive this word, that we may take from it what we need in order to continue to grow to be like Yeshua. Thank you, and we worship you and praise you, Abba, Father. Thank you so much for everything. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Anybody wants to be on camera, come on up here. Unless you guys already turned it off. You didn't turn it off yet, did you? No. Okay. Come on up. You don't trip over that again. All right. All right, come on in. We're not done.
Give a little rabbi.
There we go. All right, so on 3, we're going to wish everybody, what are we going to do? Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, and tell them we love them. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov, Shavua Tov, we love you. That's right, we'll see you over there at Sukkot. Owen doesn't want to see you at Sukkot. He wants to wait till Pesach, apparently. Sukkot's too soon for him. He needs to warm up to everybody.